A very good afternoon or evening, should I say. Thanks for clicking on to today's live stream. It is Sunday, the 1st of September, and I suppose these kind of later live streams are kind of throwing me a little bit. I keep saying good afternoon, but it's actually the good evening. And what's going to even throw me more is the fact that next weekend I'm going to do the live stream back at the usual time of 4 p.m. So a very good evening and welcome to the live stream this evening. We are going to look back at summer just gone. Hard to believe now that we are officially out of meteorological summer 2024. A very warm welcome to you, and if you haven't already done so, please hit that like button and let myself and YouTube know that you're enjoying the stream this evening. Obviously, you don't know if you're enjoying the stream yet because I haven't spoken much, but thanks to Lisa for moderating this evening's live stream. I wasn't quite sure if Lisa was a little bit busy this evening, but thank you very much, Lisa, for tuning in this evening and helping me out with the moderating. Good evening to Paul James, Lee Stevens. We've got Solar Phoenix in. We've got Jim Bob in present this evening as well. So a very good evening to you. And I hope everybody is well wherever you are. The sun is now set here at Mark Vogan Weather HQ. I'm back at home once again after a rather hectic weekend last weekend. Traveling with my dad over to see my gran. Very short visit. It was only for an overnight period. And then travelling back up the road on Monday. So I'm pleased to say that it has been a rather quieter weekend this weekend compared to last, and then a couple of weekends before that I was in Brazil. So it's been pretty hectic, I must admit. But yes, hopefully catching my breath back. We've got 14 concurrent viewers at the moment here, so a big thank you to everybody for your support by tuning in this evening. Gavin was streaming live a little bit earlier on. I managed to tune in briefly to him. I think he's going out to the cinema tonight, so I hope he enjoys his time at the cinema, whoever he is with tonight. So let's have a look and see what everybody is saying this evening here. So we've got Jim Bob saying, I can't see the video. Has it started yet? Well, hopefully. Yeah, okay, thanks. So he's aware that it is now on, which is good. So we've got 22 concurrent viewers at the moment here. Solar Phoenix is saying lots of storms in Somerset today. Yeah, thunderstorms, lots of convection running out of northern France across the English Channel and into the southern half of England. I think if I'm right in saying there has only really been one thunderstorm day here, and that was back when I was on holiday. So I think Lisa can confirm this probably, that there was, in fact, it was the day that the UK recorded 34.8 Celsius. It was the hottest day of the year for the British Isles. And I know there was a frontal system that moved from west to east and delivered a lot of thunderstorm activity. There was a house, I'm sure, caught fire in Aviemore on that particular day as well. So yeah, that's really, in terms of thunderstorm activity, that is the only real action that we've seen throughout the course of the summer. That is the one thing I would say, which is a bit of a downer living up here in the north. Unless you've got a really hot and humid spell, it's always generally the further south you go over the UK that gets the big thunderstorms that they generally come off the near continent, in fact. So yeah, we tend to be thunderstorm starved up here in the north of Scotland. And Lisa says, yeah, it got hit by the bolt of lightning I captured. So yeah, Lisa must have been recording that thunderstorm on that particular day. We've got Jack Lowe as well. Did I say hello to Jack? I don't know if I did. We've got Katrine that is on as well this evening. A very good evening to you, Katrine. I know you were on Gav's stream a little bit earlier as well, but hope you are well and enjoying what's left of the weekend. So let me just see here. I'll continue to skip through and see who is on and who is saying what. I'm going to look back at what was said with regards to the summer back at the very end of May, I released the summer forecast. There's pros and cons, as is always the case. You know, there's never a perfect forecast, especially when you're forecasting, 2-3 months in advance. But the overall setup and overall what took place, I'm actually more than pleased with. In fact, I'm delighted with the summer forecast. Last summer was really good. Hot, dry June, followed by a wetter July and August. And the last couple of years has been quite decent. And even the winter just gone, well, last year, I say just gone as if it was yesterday. It feels like yesterday. The time's going that quick, I must admit. We've also got Mark Kinnish as well that's in. Again, I don't know if I've already mentioned Mark. But even the winter forecast, massive bust when it came to the month of February, because I forecasted it to be cold and it actually turned out to be a very, very mild February. But up until about the middle portions of January, the winter forecast was playing out pretty well. So obviously, you're trying to kind of analyse things in quite a lot of detail. You're always trying to learn as the weeks, months, and seasons go on. You're trying to kind of learn more and more about how the atmosphere works, etc. And, the ocean relationship between the ocean and the atmosphere. We're obviously talking about La Nina. Didn't really have, in my opinion, La Nina didn't count this year at all. I don't think anyway, because we really didn't see much in terms of the cooling of the East Pacific. We're starting to see that taking place now, actually. And we'll talk about that. And that's going to become a bigger player when it comes to the upcoming winter ideas. And by the way, there is going to be a winter update. I don't know what day, but there is going to be a winter update coming up this new working week. So if you love weather, if you love winter in particular, and you haven't already done so by subscribing, please do so, because things are going to start to kind of heat up when it comes to the winter ideas. We've got the La Nina beginning to show its hand. The SOI, which is the Southern Oscillation Index, which is a measure of air pressure between Darwin and Australia and Tahiti in the Pacific. We're starting to see it going from negative, which essentially when the SOI, or the Southern Oscillation Index, is negative, the atmosphere is more responsive of a La Nina type signal. And that's been playing a big role in terms of the quiet hurricane season, especially during the month of August. It got off to a quick start, then it kind of died to death. But in some respects here, El Niños tend to be less conducive for tropical activity in the Atlantic Basin. And El Niño, the atmosphere was more similar to an El Niño as opposed to a La Nina. But now that the SOI has moved above the zero line, now it's up into positive territory and continuing to become more positive. The atmosphere should start to become more conducive for these tropical waves that are coming off the African coast. So we're going to keep a close eye on all these things going forward. And even with regards to the weather pattern up here across Western Europe, for example, some of these systems that develop and recurve can sometimes trigger a negative Arctic oscillation, negative North Atlantic oscillation. So all these things are interconnected, and I'm doing my best to join up the dots and then bring that information to you and explain to you what is going on with regards to ocean atmosphere and weather patterns, etc., etc. So we've got Katrina saying, thanks, Mark Vogan. I am keeping well. I hope you are too. I am doing very well, I must admit. Lindsay is working this evening, so I've been busy hoovering, doing dishes from last night, cutting the grass. So yeah, I've not been sitting on my lazy backside all afternoon doing nothing. I've been quite domesticated and trying to get things done while Lindsay's working hard. So yeah, I'm doing very well, thank you. Lisa says, bring on winter. Mark Kinnish says, hoping, Mark, for a cooler September CET in the 14s. Hopefully help us get a colder winter. Certainly, there's been some correlation between warm Septembers and warm winters. How much truth exactly that has, I think, remains slightly to be seen. I noticed the one one tweet there by James Peacock saying that there isn't a huge amount of connection or proof that warm Septembers deliver milder winters. That is an interesting one, I must admit. And I'm not necessarily dismissing that argument, but I'm kind of slightly on the fence. We bit similar idea to October snowfall over Siberia and how much you get during the month of October, depending on how much blocking you get with the Arctic Oscillation, North Atlantic Oscillation. These are other aspects that I'm not entirely sure about, if I'm being quite truthful with you. We'll go into the, what was said with regards to the forecast versus what took place in a little second or so here. But we had 4 degrees this morning. Lisa, in fact, it's interesting that you say that, because the minimum temperature I recorded here in the back garden yesterday morning was 3.9, and this morning was 3.8, and we did exceed 20 Celsius this afternoon. So quite a big swing in temperature actually between morning and night, and that had been something that I'd mentioned quite a bit in recent videos at the end of last week, that we could see some big diurnal fluctuation between morning and afternoon that we haven't really seen, and we didn't really see much during the springtime. Normally during the springtime you get a nice high pressure cell that sits almost bang slap over the UK. What you get is that radiative cooling at night time. A lot of incoming solar radiation gets released back to space under those clear skies. Then you get that strong spring sunshine, and you get this quite large swing between morning and afternoon. And I suppose we're starting to get closer to that time again, where you can get the mild afternoons, but the chilly, even frosty mornings. So I must admit, it was quite nice to get some nice, clear, calm conditions. I noticed the pressure at the station recorded 1028 millibars, which is a reasonably strong area of high pressure. So Lee Stevens says it has been nice to have a summer relatively free of sleepless, muggy nights. That is one thing for sure, Lee. It's definitely not been overly warm at night time. I suppose up here across the north, that wouldn't be a difficult one, because we've really not had any particularly hot days at all. Down across the southeast, different matter altogether. Katrina says, I would also like to have a cool September in Essex. Certainly in Essex, where you are, Katrina, it can get pretty darn hot, and there has been a few fairly decent hot afternoons for sure. And I know you don't like the heat, Katrina. Northern Ireland was pretty grey this summer, says Jim, and I can vouch for that here in the north of Scotland, Jim, that we have certainly had some fairly cloudy days to speak about as well. Amazing to think that the maximum temperature for here at the house has only been 24.1 Celsius. June was 24, July was only 22, and August, on the 1st of August, recorded 23, and that was the maximum for the month of August. So it has been a very, very, disappointing maximum in terms of summer temperature. One thing I would say is slightly interesting is the fact that the days of kind of around 20, 21 Celsius has actually been fairly consistent at times. Not recently, but certainly consistent. Sure, I looked at the stats for August, and it was 10 days above 20 Celsius, which is quite interesting. But there was no day beyond 24.1 Celsius, where last summer was seen several days above that figure. I think there's 11 such days that were warmer last summer compared to this summer, based on something that I'd seen back at the beginning of August. We've also got Nathan Richardson as well. Good evening to you, Nathan. Hi, Mark. This summer has been meh to me anyway. Got down to 8 Celsius a couple of nights ago on the northeast coast. I'm assuming you're in the northeast coast of England. Am I right in saying that? We've also got Jack Lowe. One thing I noticed this year was that the blackberries were ripe in July here in Warwickshire. Unusual indeed. I look at the countryside for a winter heads up. And certainly that is something that we're going to be looking at, is winter this upcoming work week. on the European outlook. So I hope you can join me for that. I'm looking forward to bringing some of the latest ideas with regards to the winter. Still early, obviously, and we still have to get through the month of September and October. Those can be quite critical months in terms of watching how the teleconnections are playing out. We've got a West QBO. We've got a solar maximum. I think we've had the most sunspot numbers since 2001. I'm sure Shrine Bruin put out a tweet. I'm sure Lisa would correct me if I'm incorrect with that one, but I'm pretty sure 200 plus sunspots this August, which is the most since 2001. So we're going to be looking at the year 2001 as well. We're going to look at the developing La Nina. We're going to look at other aspects as well. Sea surface temperature anomalies as well is going to be a big thing. We've seen a significant cooling between eastern Canada and the northern UK over recent weeks as well, which has been quite noteworthy. A lot of warm water to the south of that, I must admit, but it has been interesting. Very hot summer. The majority of Central and Eastern Europe has had a very hot summer, but here in the northwest it has been rather different. So let's get into it. What time are we on? It's 10 to 8. So Nathan saying, yes, England and autumn to winter will be very interesting this year. I'm certainly getting quite excited about the prospects of looking into the winter forecast. And yeah, I'll certainly be getting into that in the not so distant future. So anyway, let's have a look and see what was said with regards to this past summer in terms of the forecast anyway. So bear with me just while I pull this one up, and let's see what was said. So this here was the prediction. So I've kind of screenshot this. Might be a little bit hard to see, but I'll blow this up slightly for you to be able to see it a little bit clearer. I hope it is. This here is essentially the ideas that I had. So a mixture of warm and cool. You notice here this line is a dividing line. So to the south of that line, frequent hot spells. So lower pressure to the northwest, higher pressure to the southeast. And essentially this is how the 500 millibar pattern took place. This is the period between the 1st of June and the 26th of August. So we're missing a few days at the end of August. But I think you'll pretty much say that the idea that I had, because not only am I talking about temperature here, but I'm also talking about pressure, and I meant to kind of throw that in. This graphic was made at the end of May, by the way, but that indicates the mixture of warm and cool, hot and frequent hot spells to the south. Essentially, you're talking about lower pressure to the northwest, higher pressure to the southeast. And the reason why I thought that was based on a few things, but the fact that we had an increase in drought developing over southeastern Europe was another reason why I thought that was going to be the case. So you can see here, if I blow this up just a little bit more for you to see, this is the 500 millibar anomaly for that, the period overall. So very deep low, if you notice here, the negative here extending from Labrador across Greenland, across Iceland, and into the majority of the UK was essentially stuck under lower pressure. The further north and west you went over both Ireland and Northern Ireland, the closer to that low pressure core you were. So what was said? This is an interesting tweet, by the way, by World Climate Service. Saying, so I'm sharing this with you because I thought I quite liked what this was a tweet that was put out just before the summer as well. One of the more interesting analog signals in our recent summer forecast is set of the years with the most similar North Atlantic SSTs. The pattern looks reminiscent of summer 2012 for Europe, although that year isn't one of our analogues, probably not what the UK crowd want to hear. And this was the mix of analogues, what the pressure, the surface pressure ended up being based on 2023, 1967, 2017, 2008, 1953, 2020, 98, 62, 07, 1999. Now you notice here that 2007 and 2012 have been mentioned, albeit that it's not an analogue. But it's very interesting that actually. And this was the temperatures based on those years as well. So slightly warmer than average across the southeast, cooler than average across Ireland, which is quite interesting. And the majority of mainland Europe was warmer than average. This was rainfall, so wetter than average based on the analogues. So what did I say? This is what I said. Rainstorms or flooding downpours and unusually cool summer days are possible, with a lot of fluctuations between low versus high pressure. But I think low pressure may win the battle, and that is quite important to take note of. So it's based on exactly what was said. So I'm not shying away from anything. If I'm wrong, I hold my hand up and say I was wrong. If I'm right, well, I suppose I give myself a slight tap in the back. Yes, there is an element of fluke involved in that as well. I get that. But there will be a relatively short-lived hot spells. Slightly longer and stronger the further south and east over the UK and Ireland you go. With a direct or indirect influence of the tropics, one cannot rule out an August of two halves, by which I mean the tropical entities lifting north over the western North Atlantic can boost high pressure over the UK and Western Europe, leading to a lengthy spell of fine summer weather. But the very same systems can run right around the mid-Atlantic ridge, pay a visit to our shores, bringing unusually wet and windy conditions. So if we remember back, we had two systems that involved our weather pattern. The first one, which I believe was Beryl, helped pump heat indirectly, that is, helped pump heat into the southern UK and brought 34.8 Celsius, which was the hottest day for the UK in not just this summer, but actually for a couple of years. It was the hottest temperature. Then we also had Ernesto, and Ernesto did also what I thought was going to take place, recurving, and about a week before it happened, I said that Ernesto is going to deepen the trough over the UK and Ireland and essentially reinforce the wet and windy cool pattern that we had going. And essentially that is essentially what happened. I said essentially far too many times. I do apologise. I do repeat myself far too many times and I hate doing it. So please forgive me for that. But I'm very, very happy with August. August has played out quite well. Deeper trough to the north of the UK than I expected. But June was a tale of two halves. Cool first half, warmer second half. July was a warmer first half, cooler second half as well to an extent, or should I say the opposite way around. In fact, a warmer second half to July, like June, compared to the first half. So this is what I said in terms of June. After a cool start to the month, it may turn more unsettled and overall a mixture of warm and cool spells, wet and dry as well. Cool first half to likely to be followed by a warmer, possibly wetter second half. Near average to slightly below average in terms of temperature, the average to below average in terms of rainfall. So it was, in fact, a drier than average June, and it was also slightly cooler than average for June. So pretty decent score, I think, for the month of June. Let's move on to July. What was said? July has probably the best shot at the longest and warmest period of summer, and so I shall go for a warmer but slightly drier than average overall July. The maximum temperature 32, and I believe it was 32 or 33 Celsius for a maximum. I think it was 32 point something. I could be wrong with that. June's maximum was 30.5, I think, and I did call for 30 as a maximum for June. So June and July were very, very good in terms of even the UK maximum. Now, I said that July would probably be the best shot at having the longest, warmest spell of summer, and I'm pretty sure that actually took place. We did have a prolonged spell of warmer, sunnier conditions and settled conditions, but it did not affect the northern UK or indeed the West Wales, southwest England, northwest England, Ireland and Northern Ireland did not experience that. But further east and south you went over England, we did see the longest spell of decent weather. Moving on to August, and it was a very, very tough call. The tropics really did hold the key to this. With the tropics becoming more involved, I suspect we have, like June, quite a mixed month with spells of high and low pressure, bringing highly variable weather. Days with warm and sunny and interspersed with low pressure, bringing wet and windy conditions as well as cool. The UK maximum I had forecasted was 33, and obviously the maximum turned out to be 34.8 Celsius. So all in all, let me know in the comments, the live stream or the live chat, should I say, what do you think about that forecast based on what I said? I personally think it's been a pretty good call. The problem that I have slightly is that although the synoptic setup was pretty good and the overall ideas from a monthly breakdown point of view were pretty decent, overall a slightly warmer and wetter than average summer is expected for the UK. The problem is it wasn't warmer than average. It was actually slightly cooler than average. Now, the reason why I thought warmer was based on the build-up of warmth in the sea surface temperatures during the month of May, that I kind of felt even with lower pressure and even wetter conditions. Look at last summer, for example. But June really did sway the balance, I suppose, because it was a record warm June, which then kind of tipped the rest of the summer. But the warmer aspect has been incorrect and wetter than average. Well, some places have been wetter than average, some places drier than average. It's been very highly variable. But I've actually scored. This is the brief stats that have been released by the Met Office. Summer cooler than average. Rainfall average with much regional variability. Slightly below average sunshine. So, like I've written here in the September forecast, combining what was said month by month and my synoptic idea, I would say it's been a good summer prediction. But being cooler, not warmer, knocks down the score. 7.5, I'm kind of between a 7.5 and an 8 out of 10. What do you think of that? I personally think that's pretty decent going, actually. And, there's a lot of complications with regards to the September outlook. And a lot of it, again, is based on what happens with the tropics. So we've got Lisa said, don't forget to hit... sorry. Yeah, please don't forget to hit the like button. I would greatly appreciate it. Let myself and YouTube know that you're enjoying the content here in the channel. Jack Lowe says, Steve, this time last year was boiling in Buxton. I did an ultra run on the 8th of September and it was around 27 Celsius, if I remember rightly. Tough running conditions, over 100 kilometres. Nathan says, are the sea surface temps cooler than average now? Will they recover or impact this winter? Good question, Nathan. And again, that is something that I'm going to be looking at in quite a bit of detail, and I'm going to be trying to bring a bit of an answer to that one. Still a little bit of uncertainty, but the sea surface temperatures have cooled quite dramatically. And the reason for that is because of the upper air pattern. Lisa says you did a pretty good job. Thanks, Lisa. Mark says, I think you did very well, Mark, with the forecast. My mum's back on as well. Hello to you, Joyce. Hope you're having a good evening. Down in Kirkintilloch. Hope Dad's doing okay as well. Lisa says August 215 total sunspots. Had to check the official report. Lisa says highest in 23 years. That is quite impressive. So I think I'm right in saying it was 2001. It was Shrine Bruin on Twitter that put that one out. We've got Steve also tuning in. Hello to you, Steve. Buxton Weather Station said August was warmer than July. Slightly average temperature. August 15.8, July 14.7, and June 12.8 Celsius. So quite interesting stuff. My mum says, "Hi Mark, found it hard getting in, but there now." So yeah, good to see you. I kind of thought that you might have been struggling to get in because you weren't tuned in before now. But we've got 33 concurrent viewers at the moment here. Thank you very much for tuning in this evening. Hope you're enjoying the content so far. Hit that like button, and if you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button. If you're a lover of all things weather, we're going to be talking about local as well as global weather through the remainder of this stream, and also here on the channel. Strive to provide you unbiased, unhyped, accurate weather content here that perhaps you don't get elsewhere. But let's continue to look through here. So the summer overall, I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but there's quite a lot. But it is freely available on markvoganweather.com for you to check out at your leisure. But this is the charts. So by the way, this is the current sea surface temperature anomalies for back a few days ago. And you can see here this ribbon of cool extending from just south of Greenland towards the UK. Very warm waters to the south of this here. But the reason for that is we've had quite a strong area of high pressure quite far to the north. And then we've got some fairly cold air gathering over southern Greenland. That contrast in the gradient, both in the oceans as well as in the atmosphere, has generated a very strong jet stream. And therefore, the strong winds blowing from west to east over the ocean allows the waters to cool. It's the same idea, essentially, as these easterlies strengthening within the equatorial region that's helping bring on this La Nina. Cooling waters, then the atmosphere responds. But sea surface temperatures are going to be looked at in quite a bit of detail coming up here. But there's a lot of information on here that still has to be added to actually over the next few days, because I've got a couple of other things to throw in here. But the tropics have been fairly quiet. Check out the tropical outlook from yesterday. It's a 29-minute long video explaining why the tropics are so quiet compared to what was expected, compared to a lot of forecasts. Mount-Julian oscillation has been stuck over the Indian Ocean during the majority of August, sinking over the North Pacific, over the Americas, and over the Atlantic. And that has been having a detrimental influence on the atmosphere. We've had stronger wind shear that you would normally expect with El Nino. This is why I'm saying that the La Nina has been more reflective, atmospherically speaking, with an El Nino as opposed to a La Nina. We've got stronger westerly winds within the tropics. That has detrimental impacts on the tropical waves coming off Africa. We've had more dust than usual coming off Africa. And another factor that has been pretty crazy, if you ask me, has been the fact that, check this out. So this is the intertropical convergence zone, winds from the north meeting winds from the south. And I put this tweet out here back in the 31st of August. And look at the moisture here. Bear in mind that the majority of the Sahara Desert at this time of year sees no rainfall. But even through a calendar year, they may only pick up barely an inch or two at very most. Many of these places see very little to no rain throughout the year. What's happening here is we've got the intertropical convergence zone, which is the birth of tropical waves moving from east to west out over the Atlantic to eventually become tropical storms and hurricanes. But we've got moisture that's lifting further north. The ITCZ, or intertropical convergence zones, further north than normal this year. What is happening is these waves are then leaving the African continent further north than usual, and it's over waters that are not conducive to support tropical cyclones. So they're moving out of Africa between Cape Verde and the Canary Islands, and water temperatures are below 27 Celsius. So that's another factor. This has been a really strange year so far. And one of the reasons why I think this is happening is that the subtropical ridge that is permanently parked over the subtropics, during the course of the summer season, is further north than usual. And I think a lot of that's to do with the very, very unusual warmth in the Mediterranean, the North Atlantic. The heat wave that we've seen over the majority of eastern, southeastern Europe is, I think, essentially pulling this convergence line further north than usual. And that's another reason why the tropics have been so quiet. I say some places could easily see over the next couple of weeks exceed their yearly total by as much as 500%. So obviously 3 or 4 inches of rain when you don't normally see an inch over the course of the year. Well, there you go. You're getting it 3-4 times the normal amount. In simplistic terms, I believe that the reason for the ITCC further north is due to the anomalous warm SSTs in the Atlantic and the Mediterranean pulling subtropical ridge further north. But that's an interesting one. That's a big story, by the way, is this precipitation getting pulled further north into the Sahara Desert. So, let's just see here. Mark is saying, hi Mark, still remember Beast from the East in 2018. Mark Vogan, you've done a brilliant forecast. Thanks very much, Katrine. I do appreciate that. Not trying to blow my own trumpet, but I think, very, very quickly people turn around and say when you're wrong. But sometimes when you're right, they kind of hush. I suppose that's just part and parcel of it there. But Steve says it's been the dullest year so far in Buxton for 20 years. Quite interesting, actually. Mark, do you think the tropics will still get going? Yes, I do think they will, Mark, get going. And I think the fact that the SOI is becoming more positive means that we're likely to reduce the wind shear over the main development region in the tropics. A lot of these waves coming off Africa are becoming stronger, and I think what's going to happen is the ingredients overall is going to start to focus and refocus back in the source region and down within the deep tropics. And I think we are going to see systems. The problem that you've got as well is that you've got very, very warm sea surface temperatures over the Western Atlantic basin here. Let's have a look and see what the current SSTs are. So if you look at this here, let me just see, let's have a look at the Atlantic in particular, Western Atlantic to be exact. You've got these water temperatures, 30, 32 Celsius, really from the islands in the east all the way through the Caribbean up into the Gulf of Mexico. Now, if you look at these water temperatures, then you look at the fact that the depth of these water temperatures extend well below the surface. Tropical systems that run over warm waters tend to upwell cool water from beneath, but if you've got water temperatures of 27, 28, 29, 30, but extending, say, 100 meters below the surface, these systems sometimes do not have any cool water that upwells, so they've got like added fuel, added strength to intensify even greater. My concern is that systems getting further west into lower sheared environment, into less dusty air, and this high octane water temperatures that have been not tapped, you're going to see another system like Beryl go from a Cat 1 to a Cat 5 in no time. That's the big concern, I think, going forward. Remember that the peak of the season is still ahead. Now, if I can try and find the right chart, this is the names that we've got down to so far. So we've got down as far as Ernesto here. Next would be Francine. We've got Gordon. We've got Helene. Mum, you've got a hurricane name this year. Hopefully you're not becoming infamous later down the road. But there is an Isaac, a Joyce, a Kirk, a Leslie, a Milton, Nadine, or whatever, Oscar, Patty, Raphael. These are the names that are still ahead of us. This is what we've seen so far within the tropical season. That is Ernesto's track, I believe. That is Beryl. I could be wrong with that. I'm getting mixed up here. But look at the recurving of these systems here. We've got 2 systems that have recurved. One of which helped bring the hottest day of the year. Another helped reinforce the wet and windy conditions. And then following that came Lillian, Storm Lillian, back at the end of August as well, and Lillian became the 12th named storm of the 2023-24 season, the most named storms since naming began back in 2015, which I thought was quite interesting. Again, that year 2015, I think this has been the first time that we've had a summer, meteorological summer, below average since 2015. And Dan see the stats from the Met Office wants to come out. Let's have a look and see what the Weather Bell 90-day temperature anomaly has looked like here. So this is essentially the summer just gone, June through August here. And you can see here, generally it's been warm. So the northern and the southern hemisphere, granted the southern hemisphere is just coming out of their winter season, but look at South America. The only areas in the southern hemisphere that have really been below average over the last 90 days is Argentina, it looks like here. So looking at North America. So let's have a look and see what South America has looked like in terms of the last 90 days. So you can see here, generally warmer than average, with exceptions of central and southern Chile, Argentina. You've got Paraguay and Uruguay kind of back and forth between average and above average. Looking at North America, quite an interesting one here. The majority of the continent has been warmer than average. Alaska's had a relatively cool summer, and the upper Midwest, we've had a lot of high pressure anchored over the west, systems riding over the top, and then moving through the upper tier of the country here, through the Great Lakes into the Midwest. We've actually had a below average summer across southern Minnesota, eastern South Dakota, northern Iowa, and a lot of average extending all the way down. This is interesting here as well, by the way, around the Dallas area. It's actually showing up in the CDAS data as slightly below average, which is a pretty hard thing to do, actually. But there's been a lot of wet weather, a lot of stormy weather up here in the upper tier of the United States. It's been hot in the west, and it's also been pretty hot up the eastern side of the country, from Florida all the way to Maine, up into Canada. The majority of Canada has been warmer than average, as you can see here. Looking at let's look at Africa and see what it's been looking like here. So we've got below average in the Sahel region, so the lower southern fringes of the Sahara Desert. Also, coastal Morocco has been below average. Down the western side here into the tropics of Africa, we've got areas here just below the equator that's been slightly below average, but generally speaking, warmer than average for the majority. Looking at let's look at Australia and see. Obviously, we know that they've just recorded some of the hottest winter temperatures ever in recorded history in Australia. We'll try and look at that in just a second. But this is the last 90 days. So essentially, this is the winter season down in both Australia and also New Zealand. And it has been, there's been cold days, there's been some wet days, but overall, it's been a warmer than average winter down in Australia. Tasmania, close to average, if you notice here, and both North and South Islands of New Zealand has been warmer than average as well. Looking at Antarctica, and this is a biggie because it looks as if they have had one of their warmest winters on record. It looks as if August has been one of the warmest, if not the warmest, August on record for Antarctica. We've had two significant spells of stratospheric warming, and this is another thing that's going to be looked at with regards to the upcoming winter forecast. What relationship or connection do we have between the southern polar vortex and the northern polar vortex? We know that the northern polar vortex is starting to, come alive once again. Days are becoming short, nights becoming longer, the cold's growing, and the polar vortex is going to start to spin and get going as we go through the next few weeks here. Really, generally, during the month of September, you see the polar vortex really ramp up over the northern hemisphere. But down across the southern hemisphere, it's been a very, very warm winter overall. What kind of winter have we got coming up? That's going to be the big question. Looking at Asia, and then we'll look at Europe. This is how Asia has panned out. So southwestern China has been cooler than average, but the majority of China has been very warm. It's been a hot summer here. Japan, North and South Korea, eastern portions of mainland Asia. India is an interesting one. We had a robust, fast start to the Indian monsoon. Then during the month of July, it really kind of fell apart. The monsoon, the MJO, headed out the door, and then we've seen a lot of sinking that suppressed the monsoon. We've seen less in the way of rainfall, and then all of a sudden we've started to see it coming back. The MJO is quite robust in the Indian Ocean at the moment, and it's helping regenerate that monsoon circulation in this part of the world. But in essence, the northwest and the southeast has been colder than average during the last 90 days. Southwest and northeast has been warmer than average, which is quite interesting, also including Nepal in that one. And Southeast Asia has been pretty hot as well. Finally, looking at Europe, and this is how the last 90 days have looked. It has been the hottest summer on record, if not for the majority of mainland Europe, certainly for the southeast, down towards Turkey, Greece, and the Balkan region. It's been a brutal summer. It's been relentlessly hot. Days, above 30, above 35, and even above 40 has been quite unprecedented, actually. The UK average across the bulk of England and Wales, much of Ireland as well, but Northern Ireland, Scotland has been colder than average, and I think it's ended up just slightly below average for the UK as a whole. Looking at the upcoming period here, so let's have a look and see. So, like I said, Nino region 3.4. I know I'm back and forward a wee bit, sorry about that. We've surpassed a half a degree below average, so we are getting there with regards to La Nina, and the SOI is starting to reflect that also. So we'll keep our eyes on that going forward. Looking at the North Atlantic temperatures here real quick, you can see that the temperature has been gradually starting to fall away due to that upwelling in the North Atlantic, but we have got a lot of warm water in the central tropical Atlantic, which kind of tips the balance, so to speak. Looking at the overview charts here, let's have a look at the GFS. Let's look at the regional here. 2 seconds here. So worldwide, looking at precipitation over the next 7 days globally. Let's blow this up just slightly to make it easier for you to see. And this is the upcoming 7 days in terms of rainfall anomaly. So remember the September forecast: drier north, wetter south. And it looks as if that is the case for the UK and for Ireland here. Quite a dry north, wetter south. Down into France, down into Iberia as well here. Got that moisture coming off Africa. The model sees some rain across the northern Gulf through Florida, for example. Texas is looking wet over the next 7 days as well. Got moisture now starting to ease. We've had a lot of rain over Indonesia in recent times, but we're starting to see that pulse. The highest rainfall totals now starting to push eastwards. Parts of Southeast Asia, a mixture between drier than average versus wetter than average. India, Western India, seeing wetter conditions here. Look at Africa, and this is what I'm talking about. The wetness moving further north into the Sahara. That is really quite a weird and wacky thing to even see, by the way. Looking at temperature anomaly for the upcoming 5 days is looking like this from a global perspective. UK looking reasonably warm, actually, compared to average. The United States is a split. Central eastwards, cooler than average, with the exceptions of the southeast. Alabama, Georgia, down into Florida, warmer than average. Western United States and most of Canada warmer than average here. Look at Europe, blowtorch for the next 5 days here. This is a very hot start this September and autumn for the UK. Looking at the Sahel region, is firmly below average. Even across interior South Africa is running below average. Then you've got very hot conditions up across the northern portions of the continent here. The Sahara, for example, no surprise, you would expect it to be hot early September. Look at Australia, firmly warmer than average. Same areas are seeing cool parts of Argentina into the far south of Brazil, but the majority of South America is warmer than average, as can be seen here. We've got a mixture down across Antarctica. So looking at the extremes around the world over the last several days, and we'll have a look and see what our friend Maximiliano Herrera has been saying. What time are we on? We're on 23 minutes past 8, so I'm going to try and round up here. Hope you've enjoyed today's content. If you have, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. if you haven't already done so. Lots of heat across parts of Japan. Minimum temperatures record-breaking. Nighttime lows of 28.6 Celsius in parts of Japan is the highest ever recorded in September along some stations in the Tokyo prefecture. So, been a brutal summer for many areas of Eastern Asia. We've had a remarkable heat wave in Eastern China, for example, 200 monthly records smashed with temperatures as high as 42.6 in Hubei province and Yunnan province as well here. Remarkable temperatures in down under. Winter ends with a bang, with yet another avalanche of records falling. We've got the 39.7. This ties Friday as the hottest winter day ever recorded in Queensland. Data goes back to 1888. There is a lot of stuff here, by the way, that I've just simply not had a chance to talk about, including the record wet August that we've seen in parts of Scotland. This is an article, by the way, from Sean Batty of STV saying that some sites have recorded the wettest August, the wettest summer on record. Some eastern areas nowhere near as much rainfall. But this is all going to be added into the September forecast and the look back at summer 2024. So there's a lot of stuff here that I would love to be able to share with you, but I just simply don't have the time to get through it. So check out the look back of summer, the September forecast. All this information is going to be on there for you to check out. But there's always so much to cover, and you just simply do not have the time to be able to look at everything. And I just don't want to continue on. People want to get on with their evening work next day, for example, as well. So I do appreciate that. But let me just see if there's anything significant that I've missed out on. I know I always do. This is an interesting one here. A new European record. Highest average temperature at Lindos on Rhodes, Greece, had an average summer temperature. So this is June through August combined. An average temperature of 32.0 Celsius, by far the highest ever recorded in any station in Europe. It beats itself, so this must have been the record holder previously by a full 1 degree Celsius. So the average summer, June through August temperature, 92, essentially 90 Fahrenheit or 32 Celsius, highest ever in Europe. Also record-breaking warm conditions, by the way, down in parts of Antarctica in recent times. That strat warming having a big influence on that. We've also had some very stormy conditions across southern Australia, Tasmania, New Zealand. A very deep area of low pressure down near over the Southern Ocean, 925 millibars. Very strong high pressure over Australia. Very powerful westerly winds, I think, damaging wind gusts in parts of New Zealand, south coast of Australia and Tasmania during the last week or so. So quite a big story there with the wind as well as the record-breaking heat. Indonesia seeing record-breaking warm conditions as well, 36.6 in Semarang Airport, highest temperature for the month of August. Let me just see here if we've got anything else. Extreme hot start to the month of September, as I've already said, in parts of Europe. South American heat wave got temperatures as high as 39.9 Celsius. Bear in mind that they're just coming out of winter, obviously. And I know I've missed stuff. I know I have. But I hope you've enjoyed today's content. I hope you've enjoyed the live stream. Thank you very much for tuning in. There we go here with a lot of these Australian records. Got 37 concurrent viewers. I kind of don't want to end because I've got a fairly decent audience. It also looks as if Lindsay has tuned in as well. I know you must be just get my dinner on, Mr. Vogan. Is that you finished work 8:30? I don't think it is. Why are you on your phone when you're working, Mrs.? That's what I would like to know. Hello from Dingwall, she says. Let me just see here if anybody else. Richard Gray, I don't think I've said hello to you, Richard, so far, but hello to you. Hi, great content tonight. Can I ask, why do you only reference the last 30-year averages? I'd like to hear the present temperatures compared to the 1980 averages. by another time. Keep up the good work. Yeah, that's a very, very good point. It's actually just the data that I have available at, it's easiest to get to that data set as opposed to the previous. You make a very valid point. I'll maybe try and look into that for another time. Richard, September to remember, or a UK as usual, Mark. I think it's going to be a mixed bag, Richard, to be quite honest with you. I really, really, really struggled with the month of September because a lot of it depends on what the tropics do. Do we get systems that break out of the tropics, head into the mid latitudes, connecting up with the jet stream? You can essentially go from dismal, wet, windy conditions in September, like we've seen with Katia back in 2011, or we could get a heat wave. We could get the best period of the entire year during the month of September. We've seen that as well. I recorded my hottest temperature last year in September, 28.1. I know the UK had it say, I believe it was the hottest day of the year last September as well. So you take your pick. You could get early winter or you could get midsummer conditions in September. It's a transition month and it is very, very difficult to pinpoint details without any true guide from the models. A lot of high pressure to the north, lower pressure to the south, wet weather trying to push north towards the high. We've got a battleground, I think, over the UK, and we're going to even see that this upcoming week with the high, drier, better conditions to the north. Bit of a flip from August, I must say. And we've got wetter, cooler conditions probably further south. Yeah, do me a favour as always. Hit that like button before you leave the live chat this afternoon. It does encourage myself to do more of these streams, and very, very exciting times to come when it comes to the winter. We're going to be talking about that in a lot more detail as well in the coming weeks to come. So let me just see. I'm just trying to scroll through here to see if there's anything else that I can see. I don't think I can, so I'm going to call it quits at that. So good evening and good night to Stephen. We've got Lisa, Nathan, Lindsay. Hope to see you soon. Mark Kinnish. We've got my mum, Joyce Vogan, Richard Smith, Richard Gray. Hello to you. I think I got mixed up between Richard Smith and Richard Gray. I do apologise for that. We've got Katrine. Have I missed anybody else? Jack Lowe. Thanks very much to all these good folks for taking the time out of their busy Sunday evening to listen to me waffling on. So check out markvoganweather.com. There's lots more information on there. And join me tomorrow evening for the European Outlook. And there will be chat about the winter coming up this week as well, so you can check that out. Enjoy the rest of your evening, folks, and bye-bye.